Good morning and welcome to the Keystone Western Podcast. My name is Pedro. I'm your host and producer. This is the show where we talk about trucking and the transportation industry through stories, challenges, and innovations. Each week, we chat with industry veterans, rising professionals, and experts on topics from career advice, mental health, and fitness. Whether you are a driver, curious about trucking, or seeking inspiration, we've got you covered. Let's get started. It's a beautiful day here at Keystone Western, and I have the pleasure of having my team member, Daniel, on the podcast today. Welcome to the podcast, Daniel.
Yeah, excited to be here. It's going to be fun.
How are you doing today?
You know, it's a Monday, so dealing with the weekend's problems, but we're getting through it. You know, we're getting laid out for the week.
Cleaning up stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
And then recuperating. So, how did you get started in the trucking industry?
Well, I'm third generation. So my grandfather was a driver. He had a logging company back in Quebec. My dad's dad was also in the industry. He was a tire man and now does gravel hauling and stuff like that in his retirement. My dad's a driver, uncle's a driver, just kind of in the blood. Started driving when I was 18, got my class 1, and back 2020 made the decision to come off the road from driving here and then moved into the office and been kind of trying to work on building relationships and doing what I would expect a driver's dispatch to do from a driver's perspective. You know, try to build that relationship the way I wanted a dispatch to treat me.
Okay, right on. So, you were inspired by, obviously, your dad and grandpa and
For
trucking?
sure.
Like,
yeah.
You were into trucking from a young age? Like, was it like that dream that you had early on, or?
Yeah, I mean, I always enjoyed it, right? You know, growing up as a kid, you know, summer break, we'd go for trips with dad. You know, sister would stay home, or I would stay home, vice versa, and one of us would go for a trip, and it was always just such an enjoyable experience, and I just always enjoyed being out there, seeing the open road, experiencing it. My dad actually drove with Keystone when I was a kid, so I still remember when I was a little kid out here with a lot of the same people that are in the office now, being out there and seeing those familiar faces. So when I had applied as a driver back in 2018, I had come in and instantly was recognized by a bunch of people because it just has that family atmosphere, you know, like people recognized me. They hadn't seen me since I was probably 13, 14 years old, but still knew who I was and just it instantly clicked. Just knew I should be here.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. Can you share some highlights from your time in the industry?
I mean, I really enjoyed driving. You know, like that was something that I love doing. I have a real passion for it. I mean, I've got all the trucker stories that, you know, like everybody else, I can sit here and talk shop about random things, different trips and stuff of that nature. But honestly, since coming off the road has been really when I felt like I'd actually make some sort of impact with the industry. And being able to be here for the drivers has been kind of my big thing. You know, I've moved around from van dispatch to deck dispatch to regional, bounced around. Now I'm working a bit more of a sales role, kind of trying to do a bit more business development. And just wherever I go, I'm just kind of trying to brighten things up a little bit, try to make it better, you know.
Make improvements, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a big thing, right?
Yeah.
It's if we're not here trying to make change, what's the point?
Exactly. So. Yeah, 100%. So, what are some challenges that you had to overcome? You know, coming off the road and you know, as you develop your role at Keystone, for example, like what are some challenges that you feel like you had to overcome?
It's a good question. I mean, one of the big ones was coming off the road was losing that freedom. You know, like when you're on the road, although you have people who may be giving you direction, things of that nature, you're really your own boss when you're out there. You know, you choose your route, you choose how you're going to run that trip. If you're doing things properly, you have a lot of control over what you do day to day. And coming into the office, there's so much more structure to your day. You have people who are dependent on you to make sure their day goes well, and you're dependent on a lot of people to make sure your day goes well. So that's probably the biggest thing is like having such a different dynamic with everything, you know, rather than just being responsible for one truck, being responsible for upwards of 30 to 50 at times. It's definitely a different curve to to have to kind of look at the grand scheme of things. When in the truck, you have a mindset of where you're at, and like what is going on, why am I not getting the call back, stuff like that. And then when you're on the other side of it, you just kind of you have a different perspective, and that's probably my biggest biggest hurdle.
Yeah, that definitely gives you some insight. Like
100%.
I thought before I came into the office from the road, I thought I kind of understood what was going on, but now it's just seeing what you guys do on the day to day. I'm like, it's a much bigger picture than I think as a driver we often don't see that, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you can't try to put yourself in the planner or dispatcher's shoes, or you're doing three things. You're getting the customer, you want to keep them happy, you want to keep the boss happy, like the CEO or like the company itself, and then the driver, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely it's definitely a balancing act, and like it's so important to maintain these relationships, like that. Like a lot of this comes down to who are they relying on, like the customer is coming to us because they have a job that they trust us to take care of, and the company has me in a position where they're trusting me to make sure that things are running smoothly. But most importantly, in my opinion, the drivers rely on us to communicate with them. Like without us, there really is no line of communication. They are not sure what's going on, and without us, they don't have their next gig. They don't know what's really next at all.
Yeah.
And I think that open line of communication is so important. It's definitely something that, when busy, it's the last thing I want to let slip. But it seems to be one of those things that often it's hard to try to balance that. To sit on the phone and chit chat for 5-10 minutes and try to give that time, because I've been there. I get it. When I'm out on the road, I want to know what's going on. I want to have that quick chit chat, and I want to have some sort of a personal relationship.
Yeah.
But then from this side, when the phone is hitting every other minute, it's like, hey, yeah, no, I have that load. I'm just trying to get it locked in, and I just missed the call from the customer. Okay, yeah. Okay, now I just missed the call from the customer again. Like,
now it's starting to look bad.
And it's so tough, because I don't want to drop these calls to these guys. I want to chit chat because I like them. When I was driving, I was out there with these guys. I was throwing straps right next to them. So I want to spend that 15, 20 minutes seeing how that guy's day was, seeing what's going on, know what had happened on the weekend. But it's just so hard to get to that point. And luckily now I'm able to make some movement where I am able to spread myself out a little bit and be able to use the help of my team to be able to dedicate the time where I need it, so that I'm not dropping these calls and things of that nature. It's nice to be able to have that time to be able to work with people.
Okay. So is there, like, how did your perspective, for example, change, like coming off the road? Like there's always this joke, not really a joke, but the idea that drivers and dispatchers are enemies.
Yep. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I mean, when I was on the road, I actually had a great experience with my dispatch.
Okay.
That was a big reason why I came off the road to go into dispatching, because when I had come off, there was some personal reasons. I probably could have just jumped into a city truck, something like that, and stayed driving. But I always had a good relationship with my dispatch, and we always had a mutual respect. But I had so many stories from guys that I drove with. Stories that my dad had told me at one point or another about a different dispatcher, just an experience, and just hearing so often that drivers couldn't trust that what their dispatch is telling them is true. Okay. And that there always seemed to be some sort of an underlying reason for something. Mm-hmm. I wanted to try to get rid of that. I want to try to get rid of that stigma of the dispatch trying to screw the driver. And in my opinion, especially at our company, that isn't the case. But for myself personally, I still look at a lot of things from the driver's perspective, because wholeheartedly, I love driving, I love the industry, and I love being a truck driver. I have no reason to try to screw anybody out of anything. It's that's the biggest thing for me, is trying to eliminate that stigma, because I'm sure there are companies out there with bad dispatchers. I've met bad dispatchers, but trying not to be one is my main goal. Like that's what I strive for.
Did you find it more challenging to try to minimize that stigma that did you find it more challenging than it?
For sure. I thought I was going to be able to come in and just instantly be that guy, and everybody was going to be like, oh, Daniel, he's the dispatch of all dispatchers. I mean, this is the guy we've been waiting for. And, definitely not the case. I mean, I have a good relationship with my drivers, but I've also worked with these guys and gals for quite some time. And it takes time. You have to build that trust. I expected to just be able to go in there and just instantly they were going to be like, of course, I know Daniel. I used to drive with him. It was actually the opposite. I came off the road and instantly it was, well, clearly he was not on our side. He went over to the dispatch.
Now you have to prove yourself.
You have to prove yourself, right? You have to prove your abilities, but you also have to prove the fact that you are still with the drivers or for the drivers. And, obviously there's give and take as to what I don't know quite what I'm trying to phrase there, but there are certain things where there are aspects where I have to be business minded, business oriented, but that's more so coming from the sales side of my job. Like I've moved away from dispatch a little bit now. I do still a lot of planning, but a lot of my job revolves around customer service and business development now. And with it being more that directive, I'm now trying to help the drivers in another way. Rather than worrying about the day-to-day, I'm more so looking at the big picture. Okay. Where are we able to get that freight? What are we able to do to maintain this work? And how can we work with our drivers so that they're able to stay consistent with it? Running the same lane, being able to get into the same area so that we can work with a person on a backhaul every week instead of running into a spot that I've never seen before and then having to just hit the load board and try to get freight. Trying to get that situation where the guys can be consistent is my main goal right now, with trying to be able to know that every week they're going to have a consistent check, because that's all anybody really wants is just a little bit of consistency.
Yeah. And I think for me personally too, like I like a lot of consistency. Like we want to know what's going on. Well, I think it's human nature. You want to know the future is secured, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And if you have like that consistency, it gives you that sense that.
We've worked together. I dispatched you for a period of time, and
exactly.
Like when you were doing the regional stuff, obviously there's a fair bit of consistency there. But at the same time, on one of the slow weeks, it seems almost like, I mean, at least from my side, the way I assume you guys are feeling, because based off the conversations I have, it seems almost like, why is this happening? Because it's been so consistent for so long. If there's a drop off, it's like, okay, hold on, what's going on? Like, why are we having this drop off? This was consistent last week. What changed? Yeah,
but now trying to explain it to, for example, like me as a driver, like it's not. You can't always relate. You cannot even always repeat everything that you know.
For sure.
Some things are.
I mean, I'm pretty open with what I know.
Okay.
And a lot of times when I'm honest, it almost sounds like I'm lying because the truth is so ridiculous. It literally just, hey, the customer called and they're doing retooling and they're just going to be down and they just decided to give everybody 2 weeks off because they're retooling. Sounds like an absolute BS reason. But I mean, it's a legitimate thing. It happens all the time, especially with customers that do mill work, anything lumber, metal, even tires related. They have to do retooling at least once or twice a year.
Yeah.
And it's a complete shutdown because they don't have enough tools to be able to just fire everything back up on spares. So they just shut down the mill for a week or two and then they fire it back up. But from my end, it sounds like I'm not giving you work to, they're just retooling, it's
it sounds like an excuse, right?
For sure.
But now during that time where they're retooling and you've been relying on that customer, now you're now I gotta find load off the board and
just because they shut down for 2 weeks doesn't mean that my guys who are sitting at home want to shut down for 2 weeks. They still want to be out there and working, so always gotta look for that
odd loads plan. And you're doing I don't know. It could be good paying. Could be
not.
Can be.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you get lucky. You get an LTL load that just pops off perfectly. And other times it's, you're going in and, yeah, we barely got enough, but we're going to get you home.
Yeah.
And I hate those weeks, you know. I hate when I feel like I'm underachieving for my guys, but gotta roll with the punches.
Yeah. So what motivates you to go to work every day?
I mean, I'm definitely motivated by trying to provide for my family, but what keeps me coming back to this place every day is the guys. Trying to maintain for the guys.
Yeah.
That is probably my biggest the biggest thing that drives me is having knowing that there's people who rely on me. You know, like if I don't show up, there's somebody else might be able to jump in, but that productivity also might come down. Not saying that I'm better than anybody else.
Just you're familiar with that.
But I'm familiar with what my job is, but also there may be somebody who's better, but if they're doing their job and trying to cover mine, there's not enough time to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You know, I've been in that position. I've had to cover for two, 3 people at once, and it makes you lack on every position. You might be able to get through it for a day. You might be able to do it for 2 days, but at a certain point, it's going to start showing results.
Yeah.
So for me, what keeps me driven and has me coming in every single morning and knowing that there's things that need to get done, and without somebody here taking care of it, you're going to be putting somebody in a bad position, whether it's one of my coworkers in the office or one of my coworkers on the road. Either way, I'm putting somebody in a bad spot, and that's a big deal for me.
There's a reason there's multiple people, you know, for different regions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a reason why our teams are growing as well, so that we can be able to divide ourselves a little better and be able to do more and not be so spread thin. If we can have people who are specifically doing each different position, it allows that person to have more time to do that position better.
100%. Speaking of growing, we here at Keystone, we've been going through some changes over the last year. You know, we were Keystone Western, a little company in Manitoba, and now we're like something else. How does that make you feel? Like, what's your thought on it?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm pretty excited about the TFI purchase. You know, them taking us on, bringing us underneath their wing, it gives us so much opportunity. I've already started seeing it on my end a little bit. I'm very excited for when the drivers are going to be able to start seeing some benefits. I mean, obviously, we've had some help with things like fuel surcharges and things like that. Newer equipment is potentially in the near future. I don't know exactly when everything rolls out. You know, obviously, there's so much with the powers that be that I'm not involved in day to day. I'm ground level. That's top level stuff, but it's just exciting, you know. Having so much potential there and having a proper backing is going to be huge. I mean, we've always been a really tight-knit family, and Keystone as a whole is staying the same, but with just a bigger account.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
a lot more purchasing power.
Well, right? For sure. And then on top of that, our ability to do things like broker freight or get freight brokered to us has grown exponentially. I mean, the amount of freight that I've been able to get from other TFI carriers, and it's as simple as, oh, you have a truck in that area? Here's my order, and here's the rate, and away you go. Because it's all standardized. Because we're all on the same level playing field, there's no bargaining. There's no playing around with that. You need work done? Take it. You know, here's the work. This is what I have. Just go. And the same way for us. We don't even have to fight with trying to get a load covered because here's the number. Can you cover it? Perfect. Away you go. And there's so many carriers out there and so many trucks that it makes it a lot
hard
easier.
Hard to compete with sometimes, right? Like,
well, I mean, it makes us hard to compete with. You know, it makes us top dog out there.
Yeah, true. Like, but I mean, like, for example, when you're like one small carrier and you're trying, you're competing with 100 other carriers to get that one load now, and under bidding nowadays, it's insane, right? Like, where
bidding is definitely difficult. You know, trying to follow the market, and that's probably one of my bigger challenges day to day is just knowing where the market's at.
Yeah.
Can I bid $350 on this load? Do I need to drop my pants and hit $2 a mile and just get the guy out of there? And, you know, trying to navigate that conversation, because a lot of times if I don't get the order on the first email, that I'm not going to get a response. Okay. You know, I can tell a guy, oh yeah, I'll cover for $3,500, but he already got an email for $2,750. That load's gone. He's not coming back to me saying, can you do it for 27? He's just going to take 27.50 and he's gone. Okay. So a lot of it is knowing where the market's at and being able to make sure that your first bid is the right bid.
Okay.
Because a lot of people assume, oh, you know, there's back and forth. There isn't. You know, that load hits, if somebody else gets it, it's gone.
Okay.
A lot of times you have maybe 30 minutes to find an order. If you're not there within the first 30, somebody else has got it and it's off the board. It's fast moving.
That's interesting. Like I've never heard that side of it. That's fascinating how that works.
And that's kind of where I was coming from with the phone calls and stuff, and like not wanting to leave those phone calls, but sometimes not being able to be on them. If I'm on a call for 15 minutes and that order was posted 10 minutes ago, I might have 5 minutes to get that figured out, and sometimes I miss them altogether. I've literally been on calls and seen loads just drop off the load board while I'm sitting there having a conversation. And as much as I want to, it can also hurt that person. It can hurt somebody else, and that's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to put anybody above anybody else, including myself. You know, it's quite important that.
But it's still good to from the other end too. Like from I'm going to speak for the driver in this instance too, and I kind of and I remember one time specifically. I mean, you had a longer conversation, but that was just I was having a bad day. But anyhow. We all have that, right? Yep. We all need that talking at that point. But I always try, as a driver, you always try to be mindful. Okay, I'm not the only person out there this person has to deal with, right? Like I have a friend that I can call, or a friend or two, or potentially, have them on your speed dial, and call them if you need like a long chat. Once in a while, like you said, like it works, but.
Well, I mean, trust me, I'm just as guilty as everybody else. I mean, I can say there's more times than I can count, probably near hundreds plus of times that I had 3-hour plus conversations with guys in the truck.
Yeah.
I'm on my way down, he's on his way up, and, you're going to be in Chicago at 3:30? I'm going to be there at 4 o'clock. Okay, we're going to see each other right here. And there you are. Okay, and then keep on going. It's been four and a half hours just waiting for that wave, and then it's like, what are we going to talk about now? That's why something like a podcast is so easy for somebody like us, because we're used to just rattling things off. Complete nonsense.
No kidding, yeah. 100
Industry professional.
Industry professionals, 100%. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And two, back to Keystone being part of TFI now, you hear these concerns from other people. And at first I thought about it too, right? Like Norm built something. Norm Curtis, who built Keystone Western, who sacrificed a lot to get us where we are. The concern is, okay, Norm is gone now. Keystone's not going to be the same. Well, if Keystone Western was all dependent on one person, then we're pretty petty. I carefully use that word, but at this point, it's up to us to pick up the flag, or pick up the banner, or pick up whatever, and then continue the legacy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just the history of humanity. Like, one person builds a legacy, that person doesn't live forever, or doesn't want to work forever. So now it's, the people that enjoy that for so long to take up that standard.
For sure.
Move forward with that.
I mean, Norm definitely has set the standard. We have shaped this company around what his expectation was, and that has been able to allow us to build such a family atmosphere. At the same time, not to take any merit away from Norm, the people that he has selected to be part of this team are what is going to continue that legacy. Allow Keystone to continue being that family-oriented company. Like for me, when somebody has something and, I got a guy going out and it's supposed to leave on Sunday and I get a call, hey, I have a family emergency. I can't go on this if I'm going to be able to deal with this at home. Are you okay with finding somebody else? Before I even know what my resolve is going to be, I've already told that guy to deal with his family affair. I am always going to put family first.
Right.
That there's been times when that's put me in really bad situations. I've had service failures that, you've got to work around it. You figure out what it is. And it's that happy medium of what would I expect somebody to do for me? What am I going to be able to do to resolve it? And it really comes down to how quickly can I solve this problem? And most of the time, there's always a plan. There's always something you can do to fix a problem.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, I'm able to just okay, no problem. You're going to leave on Tuesday now. I'm going to pull this guy from here. He's going to leave on this. Explain the situations. Because we've built this atmosphere, I tell one guy, hey, he's not able to go because of X, Y, and Z. Are you able to help out? He has no problem with it. He jumps on, switches it around. And that's kind of the team that I've tried to build, is that not only my relationship is good, but I want them to have good relationships with each other, because a lot of times you're out there, and I know a lot of guys that when they're on the road, they don't have anybody to call and chit chat with. They don't have those buddies that can give them that hour-long conversation. And, you know, we need a human interaction. You know, you're stuck in the truck all day. You need somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
And if your dispatcher doesn't have the time because they're doing X, Y, and Z, and, you know, your wife's at work and doing whatever, kids are doing whatever, you know, you got to have that buddy, and trying to have that team dynamic can help with that. You know, a lot of my guys will talk to each other, and it's kind of, it helps because they're doing the same job.
Yeah.
So they're dealing with the same struggles. They have a lot of the same perspectives. It works. You know, if you can try to keep these guys in a good mindset where they're willing to work together, it does a lot. Yeah.
And at the same time too, like, you don't want to dump everything on your wife, right? Like, as a driver, right?
Absolutely.
Especially, you know, as a driver being by yourself, I feel like you have a lot more to dump or a lot more to share. So
you got a lot of time to think, right? Yeah. You know, you got problems, and when you have 11 hours a day behind the wheel, you know, you're sitting there thinking. You come up with a lot of grandiose ideas, and then your poor wife gets that phone call at 4:30 when she's off work, and you explain to her why everything is going the way it is.
Yeah.
She just wants to hear, "Hey, how you doing? How was your day?
You're still alive? You're still safe? Okay, good."
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, fair enough. Been there.
Yeah. What advice would you have for someone who, you know, 18-year-old you who wants to get into the trucking industry?
Want to get into the trucking industry? Get into a truck. No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing. You know, with I love this industry. I think more young people should get into it. Yeah. It's had a bad reputation in the past, and you know, a lot of people consider it to be a blue collar job or something uneducated, but it's not. You know, like, you're dealing with this heavy machinery. You have to have proper management skills to be able to be out there, manage your time properly, learn how to manage your book, proper load securement. You know, my experience is majority on deck division, and then specialized equipment. I used to do gravel hauling, running excavators, front end loaders, things of that nature. And that's the thing, is getting into this industry doesn't necessarily mean that you have to drive a truck, even though that's my favorite part of the job. You can do a dispatch. You can work in a shop as a mechanic. You can be a heavy machinery operator. You know, there are so many different aspects of this industry, and they're all so important. And quite frankly, to speak to an 18-year-old, the money is great. You know, I was 18 years old doing gravel hauling, making more money than I probably should have been. And, you know, quite frankly, you know, there's a lot of adults who don't make the kind of money that you can make right off the rip, right out of high school. You get your class 1, you go get your license, you know, you have to go through the course, do the proper steps, take it seriously. You know, don't just get into it purely for the money. But if you're looking for a career and you don't know where you want to be, even if you do it for a short period of time, you're going to make that money back. You're going to have a lot of great experiences on the road. It isn't for everybody. It is a very hard job being an over-the-highway driver.
100%.
City driving, pretty fun in my experience. I enjoyed it a lot. I did gravel. I did snow. I've kind of done everything involved in that kind of like gravel industry, from in the office to dispatch, like all of it, like right across the board. And the highway driving is probably one of the toughest positions, especially for mental strain when it comes to anything in this industry. And I do consider my job to have a lot of mental strain, but that comes from my passion for it, the fact that I take my job very seriously. If I didn't care, my job would not be that hard. You know, you just brush a guy to the wayside and, you know, I couldn't do it, oh well. But if you take it seriously, it does take a toll. You know, I go home and I bring a lot of my work with me, mentally and even physically, bringing my computer home and making sure that people are getting across the border. But the trucking industry is a great place to be. There's a position for pretty much every kind of person. It really, and it's a growing industry that's going to be around for a very long time, because without people in this industry, the world's going to kind of stop. We've seen it. We've seen drivers do shutdowns, and we need them to keep moving. We need people on this side, we need people on that side, because we all work together. Without any one specific piece, all the way to mechanics. You lose mechanics, the equipment's not going to run much longer.
That's right.
You lose the drivers, the equipment's not going anywhere. And if you lose people in the office, operations, dispatch related, there's nowhere for the truck to go, because they're not aware. The customer has no way to get a hold of the driver. Any one of those positions, sure, there's some workaround that I'm sure you could figure out. I'm not saying that any one of us is completely indisposable. I'm just saying that when we all work together, it actually works.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, nice. And plus, as a truck driver, you get to travel. Every young person's dream or a kid's dream is to travel the world. Travel North America. You see so much. Like within the first years of me being in Canada, after that, I've been more in the U.S. than in Canada. And now I'm happy I did it. Like me and my wife together, especially. Like that's a great experience. But too. You travel, you see a lot, and what I appreciate is most you get a better perspective of the way the world works. The news tells you see something on the news or blah 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 on TV, it gives you a perspective. But if you've seen a lot for yourself, it's easier to make up your own mind too. Like like how the world operates, and you hear there was a storm in Florida. You can totally picture it because you've been there, or a different state.
Yep, exactly. So no, for sure. That's definitely. It definitely gives you a different perspective on the world, and being able to say that you've been in a certain city. I've made deliveries on 8th Mile. It's like, you think about it, and somebody says, you hear a song about the road, and it's like, I mean, how rough can it really be? And then you get there, and you have to park out front, and you're waiting for the gate to open, and while you are, it's like, be nice if the gate would open a little quicker. Exactly. Stuff like that. It gives you a different life perspective. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. So more personal touch. What do you do to unwind and relax?
I'm a car guy.
Okay.
That's for me. Spending time with family and all that. Like, I got a young son at home, and he's big into it as well, and I'm talking young, like he's just under 2, and he's a huge car guy. Like, I'll have him in my arms, and I'll walk by the window in the kitchen, and all of a sudden I just hear him going and I look to see where he's looking, and he sees my half ton sitting out there, and he's just getting all excited because he wants to go for a rip, and it's like, I want to go too. He says, he wants to go out and do something. How am I supposed to say it's a bad idea? I'm right on board with him. I love to just tinker and do stuff like that. But spending a lot of family time, go out to the lake, do stuff like that. Just try to get a little bit of that disconnect. That's for me. It's very important to have something that you can separate yourself from the day to day and take yourself into a different mindset and different headspace. Because without that, there's too much that just loads up on you. You need to be able to decompress and separate yourself. It's very important in any line of work. Yeah.
Do you find it challenging to shut work off?
Yes.
Because that guy's going to be there Monday, and I don't.
Yes.
There's something missing.
I was going to say no, but I know that if my wife were to hear me say that, she'd smack me upside the back of the head, because I don't shut work off. Even when I took a vacation and left the province and took a plane away, I was still checking my email. I'm still kind of tuned in a little bit, because what if I can help? What if there is that problem, and it just it's only gonna take me 2 minutes to send that email, just help out a little bit. Meanwhile, wife's out there ziplining, and I'm just good job, honey.
Exactly. Besides cars, what other hobbies are you passionate about?
I don't have a lot of money, so I can only really choose.
Cars is a little bit of an expensive.
It's an expensive hobby, and it takes a lot of time, and that can go from anywhere from. I mean, I build them. I have worked on restoration, and then just once you have something like that, things like road trips, things of that nature. I still love getting out there and driving. I've ridden motorcycle for many thousands of mile road trips before. The wife and I will jump in my truck and just go for a drive. We were actually just talking about taking my 61 Impala and just maybe doing a road trip with that this year. Just get in there and see where it takes us. You know, just enjoy the open road.
Nice. What's favorite road trip that you have made? Your favorite?
That's a tough one. I mean, the wife and I have done a few pretty good trips together,
Nice.
but I would say probably one of my top favorites would be going out. Actually, probably one of this most recent one that I did with my dad.
Okay.
We jumped on the motorcycles. We went down to the Badlands, drove through Sturgis and all that a week before Sturgis. So everything was set up, but not hustle and bustle yet, because I'm not into all that being around people. I was out there to be on a road trip with my old man, not to go and talk to 10,000 other people. So driving around, hitting all those good roads and going through the Bighorn Mountains, going over and taking Beartooth Pass on the motorcycle, and, you know, being on the bottom and it being 80 Fahrenheit at 7 a.m. and then at the top of the hill it's 6 Fahrenheit. And then you get back down to the other side and it's 115. You know, it's just, you know, you at the bottom, you start the day, oh, this is nice. You know, just a light jacket, riding around. And by the time you're at the top of the hill, I got ski pants on, I got a balaclava, I'm wrapped completely up. I made it halfway down the other side and I was in a tank top with my beanie on and I'm just dying, you know. Like so.
Your body doesn't really know what are you putting me through, right?
It hits so quickly too, you know. So I would say that's probably one of my top tier trips. It was just how often you get to go and do something with that with your old man, you know.
Exactly.
How many opportunities. So that's definitely probably my top tier.
Nice. What's something that people might not have guessed about you?
I'm a softie. You know, I got a bit of a gruff voice. My main hobby involves working on classic cars and being greasy and, you know, wrenching on things. And, you know, I may have a bit of a gruff exterior, but I'm a bit of a softie. And, you know, for a lot of people, they don't expect me to be a bit more of an emotional person in the sense that I try to relate, I try to have empathy, and a lot of times, you know, it's bit me in the butt before, you know, trying to be overly empathetic or having too much compassion has definitely put me in some sticky situations, but I wouldn't change it for anything because to me it's so important. So that's probably a big one.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Don't change it. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah.
Appreciate it very much.
Absolutely.
Have fun.
We'll have to do one of these where I get to interview you.
Oh my goodness, I have nothing to tell.
Oh, I think I can get some good information out of you. This is a lot of fun though. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. It's a blast. Maybe there might be an episode 2 of this.
I don't know. I'm not sure how much people want to listen to me talk.
Different subject. All right. Thank you for watching. See you next time.
See ya.